Hi, everybody. Welcome back one more time. Thank you again for joining us. Today, we are going to talk about sisterhood. So, the first thing that I think we should try to define is what we understand with sisterhood. Sisterhood for me has come up all through my life. And basically, what I have been yearning for, or what I have understood sisterhood to be, is a support system. It is pure witnessing of each other's essence and celebration of all the good things that happen to us, all the success, all the wonderful endeavors that we put ourselves on, and you have your little team of cheerleaders. But also the people, as I said, support system, the people that are also there for when you're not doing so great, for when you're not feeling so great about yourself, the women that are going to be there to pick you back up when you feel like, oh my goodness, everything is failing. Sisterhood, I think, goes beyond this blanket statement, though. I truly believe that in the depth, sisterhood is, we've spoken about this before, right? I remember when the first time we touched on sisterhood, we were talking about um, this individual rising that we are all trying to achieve for ourselves. And I remember saying that I was getting some messages about the fact that if we do not learn how to celebrate each other individually, if we do not learn how to uplift each other's individually, that collectively we can't rise. Before we go into what we understand as the sisterhood wounds, I'd love for you, Jen, to share with us how you understand sisterhood.
I like that. I really liked your description, explanation, and take on it. And I was also like, just before we started recording this, I was rather like thinking, oh gosh, what does sisterhood actually mean? And I also realized personally, maybe we can talk about that later. I also feel that it's a word, once more, one of these words that gets misused in a way where it's just thrown away around like sisterhood circle, sister da 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 da. But actually, in the depth, people have no idea what it means. And I also feel like it's not really lived that much. I feel like I'm starting to accumulate a few women in my life where I feel like, oh wow, that's actually how it feels like. Um, but I'm starting only to see glimpses because I had to go through a long phase of distortion. Whereas for me, I think through the distortion, we learn what doesn't feel right. So for me, I think the latest examples of sisters in my life I have is really, like you say, this unconditional support. And it doesn't matter if you are feeling shit or you're feeling amazing, you're still welcome to be around these people. There is this mutual support um, for each other's life. There's also this understanding of each other's person. Just it just is. And there is this thing of like, what does this person need to fulfill her highest potential? And what can I support her in that? I think that is really that core thing. But I think for me, the thing that I cherish most about it is that I could just be my messy self. Yeah, if that helps. I think I'll make an example here just to make it a little bit more clear. And we like to have personal examples in it as well. So I'm in Guatemala still, and I was at the lake. I'm not at the lake anymore. And the lake is a very intense vortex where things either go up or they go down. So if they go down, you're really, really, really low. So I think I was in luteal phase. I didn't feel good. A few things happened in that day where I just really put me down. And my friend called me and she's like, hey, do you want to go to this live music concert tonight? And I was like, yes, but I'm really miserable and I might not be the best company. She's like, I don't care if you want to come, just come. And I could just sit next to her feeling miserable. She was in her space, celebrating the music, and I was just sitting there very mellow. But I never once felt that that was an issue for her or that she didn't enjoy my company. And that really felt so healing. I was like, oh, this is how it should feel. You know, like we're a circle of women. I see that like a circle of women around our earth holding hands. And if one hand needs to sit down or lie down because she doesn't feel so well, I'm not letting go of her hand because we can support her in that. What anyone can give me, accept me with whatever I feel in any moment and allow me to be there. And there's not that many women that are capable of doing that, right? Like, yeah.
Absolutely. I love something that you said also because it made me reflect that perhaps I was leaving a little bit out here in my definition of sisterhood. Um, so I don't remember exactly what you said. Sorry, that's my ADHD brain. But what came to me was, like also not always seeing eye to eye, but being able to, regardless of not seeing eye to eye, unconditionally love each other and still be able to, I mean, calling each other out also, I think that this is really important. I think it's a big part of sisterhood to first be able to speak your truth and also to be able to receive other people's truths without taking it personally. I think that that's a big key in sisterhood because, we're all going through our stuff differently at different times. And I think it's very important. I've always been somebody who's quite straightforward, and so I will just say what I think because I also appreciate when my sisters are telling me what they think. If you think I'm making a mistake, please don't impose your belief onto me, but please do feel free to express that so that I can get more perspectives and learn from the situation, right? It's not just cheering me on for whatever I want to do. It's, well, hang on a second. I see that you want to do this, and I think it's a great idea, and I really encourage you to go after what you want, but maybe you're missing this perspective. Maybe you could consider this. And I think that that's also a really important key. And I think it's beautiful, like I said, to be able to not take things personally, to not project then. And another thing that was coming through for me was, I mean, this is probably going now into a little bit what the wounds are, but I do feel like sisterhood is actually also linked to, or the sisterhood wound rather, is kind of also linked to the motherhood wound. And I will express this in the easiest way that I possibly can. I find that a lot of the motherhood wound at its core is there's not enough. There is a scarcity wound in the mother wound. And so I also feel that this comes into the sisterhood wound where we find women competing with each other um, in many different ways. I mean, I will use now another a personal experience. I have actually recently, this, I have been experiencing um yeah, I mean, repetitively I've experienced throughout my life women that will take from me, but my wound is not only that women take from me and that hurts me and that I feel betrayed. If not, my wound is that I continue to stay in the good girl and the people pleaser, and I just keep everybody happy, and I just want peace for everybody. And so these are just different, different angles to the core wound. So competition in not only just imitating and trying to be or have or do what another woman is, has, or does, if not actually competing to the point where you make another woman feel like shit, where you are making another woman or sister doubt her own channel, where you are gaslighting another woman. We are all so intricately connected to our wombs, to our intuition, but also to each other. We can feel this nasty energy. And so I think that the competition thing is a very big one. I think, like I said, it's very linked to the scarcity wound of the mother. There's not enough for everybody. Women for centuries, especially since, and we said this in another video, since the since femicide, right? We've been suffering silencing of our voices. We've been suffering the having to compete for a man's attention because for many years it was considered that a woman is only valid if a man chooses her and makes her a wife and makes her a mother, etc. And so yeah, different competition at very different levels. Um, yeah, I don't know if you want to jump in here.
I went to many different ways here, but for sure, I'm like, whoa, whoa, I just had an epiphany while you spoke. So I'm like trying to process this epiphany.
Why my
While
channel stopped. I think I could feel something was coming through for you. Please, go
no,
away.
no, no. First of all, thank you for also speaking about sisterhood, meaning that we also will tell each other, hey, maybe you can improve that. Like I also say that call me out on my shit. I give permission for people to do that because I chose a life where I want to grow and evolve. But there is a way where we can do that, which is like supportive, and there is a way that we do it, which is like diminishing the other person, right? It's like putting them down. Both you and me, we have experienced a lot of the criticism in a nasty way, which is like has like a distorted thing behind it, and that's where the sisterhood wound comes in. You're right. I like that you put it into the angle of the scarcity and the divine mother understanding that we're like we continuously have this feeling that as women we need to compete. Like there's this simple example where we like how often is it out there that right now women are competing for man's attention, whereas if we actually turn around and look at ourselves, a lot of women out there have done way more work and are way further in their um evolving journey than men are, and then we still compete. It's ridiculous because it's this feeling of like I need to win this trophy because that has been so ingrained into our system of like you got to be bigger, better, more beautiful, have it more together. Nowadays, it's not just about beauty but it's also about degrees, university degrees, especially like Switzerland. It's yeah. What job are you doing? What degree do you have? It's such a, so also this becomes a competition itself as well. My epiphany though that I think because you and me have both spoken a lot about copycats. Um, and that's a thing I would say that we don't really have a lot of example of what a divine feminine is. So sometimes we see something in someone else, and instead of getting inspired, inspiration is always a beautiful thing, we actually copy them. And we take in whatever they are doing and think that it is our own, right? So I feel I have always been more drawn towards the inspiration piece that I see people what they're doing. Like I remember at that point in my life where I was like, I want to do something different. I want to follow my own path. And I looked into a lot of gorgeous women and I looked into what they were doing. And I saw that as an inspiration of like, okay, I can also go there. That's one way. And I had the epiphany of realizing because that I've also had the copycat happening to me. And I didn't realize it before, but it's like just suddenly like, oh, wait a second. I remember that women, after they see me with my red hair, they suddenly have also red hair. And I never took it in as that's actually copycat. So, and this is a funny thing of we desire some what we see in someone else for ourselves, but we confuse this as meaning we need to have the same clothes, the same color of hair, the same color of clothes, or do the same, um, follow the same path as someone else, instead of actually saying, like, okay, I like her hair because she wears her hair with proudness and radiance. What do I need to feel more? That would be the way to do it, right? Yeah, so I'm like I'm sorry if it came out a little bit scattered, but it was just an epiphany for me right in this second where I'm like, ah, oh my goodness. And obviously that relationship wasn't working out anymore with that woman because it doesn't because I started feeling drained. I started feeling like someone was leeching on my energy and didn't really I don't know the English word for that. But if you don't want someone to have something, she didn't want me to have certain things. So, for example, when I shared, and that is a true example, but I'm not going to share the name, when I shared that I'm going to travel for 2 months, the message that came, oh, I wish I could do that too, but I can't because of that. Da, da, da. Like the sappy. I mean, it was more intense than that, but it was more like this thing. She didn't want that for me to happen. So as soon as she said that, that's also putting the evil eye on it. Like you're putting a shadow on my experience, and that happened a few times only for me to realize, wait a second, that doesn't feel good, that feels nasty, that's not how I want to relate to anyone, and especially not to my fellow women out there, because I think there is so much more beauty in it if we inspire each other and uplift each other instead of having to push someone down. So yeah, obviously that relationship wasn't working out because I was like constantly being copied and put down. Like that's way too intense. Yeah.
Totally understand where you're coming from. I feel like what I was saying before, there's always different angles to take at the sisterhood wound because we feel what is being projected onto us, but then we need to also realize what we might be projecting, right? Or what we might be dealing with personally. Like I said before, a lot of what has been going on for me has a lot of this copycat energy also. And then there's actually me realizing that on my end, I am still catering to these women. I've been a giver my whole life, and people just take, take, take. And so, there's the energy of the taker and their wound, but then there's the energy of the giver and our wound. So, as you were speaking, what was coming up to me was that these women that instead of taking inspiration and saying, oh, she's gorgeous, and yes, I would love to be like her. Stop trying to be me though, because what I see there is a self-worth wound. So it's we're looking for validation outside of ourselves. We are not making our own version of things. If not, we are copying another woman. That just plays into, as I said, what came to me as you were speaking was worthiness, self-worth, self-love. I came across some well, I didn't come across. I started having these like channelings or ideas that were popping through my head a few months ago, how there are three core karmic wounds, and then the rest of them are symptomatic. And so I think it's also, I mean, it's not a topic for today, but I think it's also very interesting that we could talk about that because we can actually start to pick apart what symptomatic karmic lessons are actually behind the core one, and which of these actually are playing into our motherhood wound, our fatherhood wound, our sisterhood wound.
Mm.
I think also we could definitely mention, if that's okay with you, I know it is, it's going to take us to the witch wound. I think that the sisterhood wound plays very largely into the witch wound also, especially because well, in times of the Inquisition, we had women that were, selling each other out to protect themselves. The witch wound, again, I think it might be another topic for like a full video because I also believe that men actually suffer this witch wound also. The masculine suffers it also. And, in no way, shape, or form should it be minimized or suppressed. I think it's something that needs to be talked about. But right now we're on sisterhood. But yeah, I think, betrayal in the sisterhood from the witch wound also. Also, we've had lifetimes where our powers have been siphoned from us in terms of we'll have someone that we perceive as bigger and stronger come in. This is actually illuminating a wound of one of my past lives. We've had someone come in and we've had them convince us that they are the only person that we can trust, and actually they will keep us, hence our power, for themselves. They won't let us shine. And again, that just brings me back to what I was saying, even in the last video that we spoke about this. We need to remember that to shine collectively, we really need to shine individually. I've been embarking on the priestess paths. The priestess paths have sisterhood at their core. We learn so much from each other, from actually being true, being authentic, and speaking our truths. We learn so much from each other. We learn about our vulnerabilities, we learn from our traumas, we can share our codes, we can share our medicine, we grow together. And I think this is definitely the core of what I have been yearning for in sisterhood, especially. Yeah.
Mm. Love it. Lovely, thank you. I was also bringing in the witch wound because I do think, yes, it's not a start or an end to everything, but it gives a huge explanation of what's going on. When you spoke, I was also seeing women in their 50s, like with their little cute dresses and aprons and like just working away and like always looking gorgeous and pretty. Like that also shaped our existence of today. Like for centuries or millennials, women have had such a distorted role to play. Also, like I said, competing with each other and especially the competition, but also the betrayal of each other, like you said. Um, there was for a long time, if you and me liked the same guy, I could just start saying something mean about you and say, no, she's not a good person and whatever, and then you would have been taken away, and I got the man, like that happened so many times. Um, so we were put against each other. And I think that's also what the world, society, whoever did to diminish the power of the feminine. So, yes, rolling it right back to what you said in the beginning, that this is a crucial part of us to start relating in a healthy way with fellow women is like so crucial. I love our fellow women. Fellow is actually male. Anyway, with mutual women is really important because that's actually what is going to shape the energies that are going to transform this earth, right? So let's bring it back to there. So there is so much still to be done. And I feel like there is a lot of women out there, lucky that I see, that are really role models in that and showing a different way. But it's still true. Like recently, someone shared with me, a woman, that she went into all female led retreat. There were only women. And the frustration between each other was intense because as soon as we're in a space with like hundreds of women, that's it automatically happens. And I think it's the same with me, most likely. It's ingrained within us. The oh, she's prettier than me. Oh wow, she's so skinny. Oh wow, this looks so nice on her. But okay, I look better than her. I know, and I can admit that this freaking voice is playing out within me. And I'm pretty aware of it. And I feel like I'm doing my shit work towards it. Today I'm using a lot of intense words, but that's how it is. And it still happens. So I think as soon as we start really opening up, I think we should have women's circle where this is talked about. And not just like, oh, women and softness and breath and sensual movements. Yes, that's gorgeous and nice. But what about tackling the topic together of like, hey, we're all in here. Most likely we're actually all triggered. What about if we open up the topic? What triggers you? Why do you feel insecure in the space like that? Because I think that is unshadowing the shadow, what a lovely word, to bring light into something which is actually happening as soon as a lot of women are coming into a space together. And I'm not saying men are exempt from that, because a lot of men coming into a space together will also trigger the competing thing, because men were also competing a lot, like stronger, better. Yes, so I think it's just this thing. Like I actually see that this is an energy that takes a lot of energy away from us, and therefore we are being stuck. And that's eventually serves us being stuck, us having problem, like mental problems, like the self-worth piece, like depression, whatever else, that makes us further slaves to the system because it's easy to control. People who are triggered by each other, they're easy to control. And now it's okay, the different accent came out.
I love that you brought that up because the whole time that you were speaking, what was being suggested to me is like, and again, I'm really trying to stay away from like pointing fingers at the distorted masculine continuously, but it is true. When this distortion came about and the suppression of the woman became a thing, what they began to do was to pit women against each other because they recognize how strong we are together. That is the core of it. Like I said before, we are intricately connected to our wombs, but we are also intricately interconnected as a global sisterhood, whether or not we want to admit it or recognize it. And so, keeping women in competition with each other, pitting them against each other, Yeah, this gossip culture that really came about also, it's all of this was literally to strip us of our power. We have been stripped of our womb power by being told that our menstruation is wrong, it's disgusting, it's dirty. We've been stripped of sisterhood because we've been pit against each other, like we said. I mean, this has gone on for eons. We don't even need to um, we don't even need to reassess this. I think if you go back to just like historically, right, to Egypt, I think it was it Hatshepsut, which who was the feminine pharaoh. She for standing and being a strong woman, she was attacked by her. Was it nephew? No, I don't think it was her nephew. I think it was if oh please let me try to remember history properly. It was her bastard brother, like, yeah, from one of her father's courtesans or something like that. And so he was not supposed to be heir. And so when he did actually come into power, he tried to erase her completely. How are we not going to compete against each other if we are already competing against men? You've then obviously got your women, again, back to the witch trials. You've got these women who sided with men because they didn't want to be picked apart and burnt or drowned or stoned. And so we have quite a task in front of us. I'm not going to call it a problem. You know me, that I like to choose my words. I do believe that we can get through it, but we do have a task. We have a task to go through a lot of collective stuff, and then also the individual stuff. And I think that this is what sometimes we forget. A lot of women, like you were saying, I think you were saying, or it came to me as you were speaking, we have these illuminations of what we desire from sisterhood and what we think sisterhood is, and yet it is not clearly defined to us in our minds because we haven't experienced it. We speak
Mm.
about our wounds. Oh, I've suffered this, I've suffered that, I've suffered that. Yeah, but how about you turn it around and you realize that you're the common denominator, like I did. I realized I'm the common denominator in these women that imitate me, that want to have the same light as me, mm, that try to make me doubt myself because they are doubting themselves. But wait a second, if I'm the common denominator, where is the problem? The problem lies in my self-worth. How much do I love myself? Sorry, the dog is a little bit, yeah, because we have someone doing some work upstairs. I don't know if you can hear him.
You cannot.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so like I was saying, it's about finding the common denominator and healing in yourself first so that you actually can magnetize women that are on your frequency. And we know that this always happens. I mean, I'm, I'm in the Isis priestesshood, and every time I work with Isis in a container, I get drawn into some kind of trinity. And the trinity just somehow finds its way to a mean girl situation, or even me finding myself doubting my power and my channel because someone else decides that hers is bigger and stronger, and that's not fair. That's not what I think sisterhood is. I think sisterhood is, yes, if you've been doing this for longer than me and you think you have something to teach me, you can, I'm open to learning, but don't, like I said at the beginning, don't impose onto me. Suggest. I'm very open to suggestion, but I'm also somebody who kind of rejects when she's being told what to do. So maybe I mean, that's part of my blueprint. It's part of my blueprint. It's actually one of the dysfunctional aspects of my blueprint, or the negative traits, polarity. When I feel like I'm being told what I have to do, that's when I start to become a rebel. Um, yeah. So yeah, I think it's really just an invitation to do some more inner work and some more soul searching. You are the common denominator if you have been going through all these things, and instead of sitting in the victim and just hoping and wishing that an amazing sisters will show up, realizing that you're going to continue to manifest women on the same frequency as you, with the same wounds as you, or maybe with the perfect polarity wound as you, so that it continues to play out until you freaking learn the lesson. So yeah, I think that's a big one. I think women that just sit there and complain about sisterhood wounding without actually looking into it, I think that's the invitation for them to really just start to look into it. Sorry, I went around that one a little bit.
You didn't. I really like it. And I also feel like, yes, this is a powerful thing to talk about. And I'm also like, I've done a huge change in that. I think my pattern started showing up very intensely in the last year and accumulating. And it took a while. It always takes a while. I think it's just normal to realize what is going on. And lucky I had you as well as other women that I could talk about and really get to the nitty-gritty. And due to that, I had to cut out is a harsh word to say, but it's the only word that comes. I had to cut out a lot of female friends out of my life because I realized that the friendship wasn't nourishing me. It was depleting me, that I was mainly the one listening to their problems. And they may be taking 5 minutes to ask, so how are you? And then you're like, hey, I'm fine. Today I slept well. Oh, I also, and I went into their own tantrum again. I had friends that I realized they were so stuck in scarcity mindset and that I was rather going also in supporting mode. And I'm like, I think in general, it's just, is this friendship nourishing for me? Like, how do I feel when I'm with this woman? Do I feel more energized, more nourished afterwards, or do I feel depleted, angry, sad? Or frustrated, I think that's a lot. And yes, I agree. First of all, look at your own things, like what is going on. But to remove yourself out of pattern, I realize you often have to choose to let go. And that has been yes, I know we spoke about that last week as well, but that has been also quite intense for me in the last half a year. And usually the letting go part is faster than actually new things coming into our lives. That I also find that interesting because you have to let go and then you just have to let go also of expecting that right after this new friendships, this new sisterhood, this new one will come into your life and you just have to let go and they're like, it will happen when it's ready. Yeah, so I think yeah, saying that in an like an empowering way, choose yourself, but first look at are you choosing yourself from a like integrity way, or are you choosing yourself because it became a pattern and you're just rejecting everyone? That's also not where we're going.
Yeah.
But I think yeah, it's a we're on a mutual path here as women to find really this community of sisterhood where there is this support, and I think we both crave it, and we both feel it. We feel the frequency of it, but it's sometimes hard to speak about it. But I think, first of all, I'm very big on that. If I make advertisements for my female friends when I feel like, oh, their offers this gorgeous, and I do remember about it because sometimes I forget. But it's this like, and I feel like it's actually not happening in equal parts from others. But this is for me, it's like, why don't we more often do that? Because my people in my circle, they trust me. So if I tell them, hey, what Desi does is freaking amazing, I learned this and this, they will be interested very quick. That's actually how we can change the world and support each other way more than instead of having like a solo fight, going back to the solo fight. Yeah.
I love that. And several things did come up there. Like for example, the way that we would love to receive support, perhaps it's not the way that we can actually receive it from specific people simply because it's not their love language. You know,
Mm.
like this support that we crave. I also do the same thing. If I believe in one of my sister's magic, of course, if I recognize having a conversation with somebody that my sister can actually help them, of why would I not? Invite them to get in contact. But that's one of my love languages. It's acts of service. And for me, and that act of service of helping each other and helping one person, but also helping the other person in her business, for me, that's like, hey, I just gave everybody some love. You know what I mean? But not everybody has the same love
Mm.
languages or to the same extent. Um, yeah, actually a lot was coming through, but again, my ADHD brain is filtering what's important and what's not important. Um, I feel like that was probably the biggest key, learning to look inside all of these projections of I want this, I want that, but then I'm not getting it and then getting more frustrated. I think it shouldn't be so difficult. But at the same time, I recognize that, like I said before, it is a big task. It's combating eons of distortion. If you go back there came a time in history where they stopped calling us goddesses, and that's what we are. We're gods and goddesses. The thing is that they decided that we're going to go monotheism, and we're going to have one God, and we're going to have the kings who are the kings are the representatives of God on earth. And so it goes God, masculine kings, and then if anything the women at some point. But we're also just going to make sure that they don't come together so that there's no like contradiction, because the truth is priestesses priestesses are simply, I maybe I should define priestesses in my definition is simply women who are in service to whatever's coming through for the good of humanity, whether that is with their oracular abilities of predicting financial movements or war movements, because this is what they used to do. They used to be the right hands of whoever was in power. People would go to them to ask, what should I do with this situation? What should I do with that situation? How the kings would go to them. How can we resolve this conflict that we have? What is the best thing to do for our people? Do you know what I mean? And then along came another group of men and said, no, no, why is a woman saying, why? No, it's got to be men. We should be making the decisions. And so I feel like I just went off on a tangent because my ADHD brain is not knowing how to come back around at the moment. But yeah, this this suppression of the feminine and everything that we're dealing with from eons and eons, we've been stripped of our, and I'm again, yes, now I know where I was going with this. It's not just about the women, it's also about the men. Everybody has forgotten that we are gods and goddesses. And in the end, if you look at, for example, the gods in Olympus, they had their tiffs, they had their shits with each other, but they still maintained a collective. And they had their fights occasionally, but then if there was an exterior let's say enemy, they would all defend each other. They would all defend the common interests together. And I think that this is yeah, this is a big part. I think maybe sisterhood is collective, so maybe this is another just really big collective wound. The dog is
Mm.
also distracting me. Sorry, Jen.
Oh, that's okay. We don't hear him, by the way, but yeah, he's going in his own like little maniac lifestyle. Yeah, thank you so much. I feel like my mind is actually also very blank at this point. So I'm like, are we ready to wrap it up, or do you have another topic that you want to push in, pull
No,
in?
I think that this is pretty much as far as I really can go today, because yeah, what happened today in my world that kind of inspired this conversation, it still feels a little bit sensitive. Um, but like I said before, it is actually what turned it around for me, and it made me realize, lately I have been doing a lot of that interior looking and realizing that there is always two sides of another blanket statement. There's always two sides to the story. Exactly. There's always two sides to a story. And where I can see that this hurts me, I have to look at what am I doing to enable this? And so in doing that, I did, as you beautifully said before, chose myself. So maybe I'll end it with an invitation to other women that felt resonance with this video and what we're saying, and that might be asking themselves, how do I choose myself? How do I make space for other women to come in? I have sat through my Google Photos, my Instagram, my Facebook, and I have deleted each and every person and energy that was stored from my past that needed to go, regardless of whether I love that photo, though I look so fantastic in it. It's gone. It's gone because I have realized that I do not belong on that timeline anymore. So when you choose to step onto a higher timeline, like we said yet last week, we need to be ready to let go. We need to be ready to release. So even if that means for some it might feel more symbolic, but for me energetically, it feels like I have left a massive space for other beautiful women to find me on the frequency that I am now, where I do understand what I desire and what I deserve and what I'm willing to give also. I'm willing to give exactly the same as I desire and deserve. So, yeah, the invitation is to maybe think about making space that way, to really analyzing what our the relationships and situations that need to be renegotiated or eliminated. And I can help with that because of my blueprint reads, an invitation there. But yeah, to look at those things and to choose yourself, and to know that, like Jen, like you said before, it might not happen immediately, but it will happen. When you choose yourself, you make that quantum leap, you do make space, and your life changes in incredible ways.
Gorgeous. I like that. I think my invitation is also for everyone out there that listened and really felt themselves a little bit called out. Maybe you're like, oh, wow, I've copied someone. It's not that you're a bad person or that you messed up or anything, but it's more like an invitation of, hey, maybe you can start seeing everyone around you more as an inspiration instead of having to be like them. Take the parts of them that you're like, oh, I want that. And feel for yourself, like, how can you get it? Or maybe even like, what does it mean? I see them having this cool job and I really like that job. It doesn't mean you need to have the same job. Maybe it's just like, I want to have something that fulfills me like her. So what fulfills me? Take it back to yourself again.
Mm.
But like, more see it as an inspiration. We're not here to judge anyone. We're just here to call out things that we can see collectively are happening so that they come out of the shadow into the light, and through that transformation can happen. So that is my thing for end sentence.
Well, that kind of inspired something else in me. When you're seeing these women that you're like, oh, I want to have this, I want to have that, ask yourself, is there also a tinge of, or not also, is there a tinge of, I want to have it, I don't want her to have it? That's a wound. Is there a tinge of, who the frick does she think she is to have all of this? Look at her succeeding and this and that. Reflect, reflect. It's like there, you really want to get to the bottom of what it is that you want, if that makes sense. Maybe that was a very big, yeah, it's an invitation to ask yourself what it is that you want. I think that that's what was coming through. So I think we're here for today, right, Jen?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you everybody for joining us. If anything resonated, please do like, subscribe to our channels. And we love it when you guys leave comments at the bottom and we get some feedback. If you want us to dive deeper, if you have any specific questions about sisterhood or about any of our topics, please don't hold back. Yeah, so we wish everybody a beautiful week as always, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Yes. Bye bye.